Hi, this is Brendan from Watto Training, and in this tutorial we're looking at identifying learner needs. The question is, what would a driver trainer focus on in their first lesson with a learner based on minimal information supplied about them? Before the training begins, the trainer should focus on building instant rapport with the student. 1. Don't cross your arms when speaking to them or their family. 2. Make eye contact but don't stare. 3. Use the person's name. 4. Smile and handshake if appropriate. 5. Be genuine and honest. And 6. Bring some energy and enthusiasm to the lesson. Most students are nervous. Look for signs of nervousness. There's an extensive list here of 23 possible signs of nervousness in your learner driver. Number 1, lack of eye contact. People looking down at their feet, for example. Number 2, low eyebrows, so frowning. 3, lip licking or lip biting. 4, tucked in chin. 5, laboured breathing. 6, turning body away or shielding torso. 7, hunched shoulders leaning forward. 8, crossed arms in a defensive position. Number 9, hands in pockets. 10, nail biting and nail picking. 11, sweaty or quivering hands. 12, hand wringing. 13, jiggling the foot when seated or feet. 14, interlocking feet when seated. 15, dismissing compliments. So you might pay your student a compliment and they just brush it off. 16, unnecessary apologizing. You'll get some students apologizing for everything constantly. 17, upward inflection when speaking. People who are nervous often do that. Some people do it as a habit, but just be, again, wary of that possibility. 18, self-depreciating humor. So when people are putting themselves down constantly in their jokes. 19, deferral decisions, so putting things off, indecisiveness. 20, request for validation or reassurance, so seeking constant approval. 21, overcompensation or bragging, so making out as though they're really good where deep down they're actually very nervous. Number 22, defensiveness, so when you're trying to give a student some feedback, it might not be what they want to hear, so they actually get defensive and a little frosty. And 23, speaking softly, so you can't hear what they're actually saying. Now, these are just possible signs of nervousness. I'm not saying that these are, this list is absolutely black and white, but these are things to be thinking about as a trainer. Most students will be nervous to varying degrees. So the question is, how can a trainer help their student? The answer is this: help your student to, first of all, embrace their nervousness. It's completely normal to be nervous. There's nothing wrong with it. Doesn't mean someone's weak or anything like that. The second point, recognize the factors that trigger stress. So you might assist the student in processing what it is that they're actually nervous about, and then assisting with some addressing of those issues. The third point, breathe. It's very important to keep breathing when you're nervous. A lot of people hold their breath or have that labored breathing. I train my students when stopped at traffic lights, give way situations, stop signs, merging onto the freeway, to make sure that they're breathing in and getting that fresh oxygen in their body. The fourth point, not to engage in any negative self-talk. A lot of people constantly put themselves down and focus on what they can't do. Try and sensitively cut that off and allow them to fill their mind with visualization techniques so they can see themselves performing tasks safely and correctly to the required standard. And finally, help the students to accept their skill level. You don't have to be perfect to be a safe and competent driver. More points on how to help nervous people. Build routine and rhythm into your training so the student can tune into that with their driving performance. Think of yourself like a metronome, keeping time as a piano student practices their scales to build skills that will help them perform more challenging pieces. Stay calm and stay positive. Choose your training areas carefully. Match the learner's ability and confidence level with the level of complexity of the driving task. More points on how to help nervous people. Simple lifestyle techniques to help manage stress, nervousness, and anxiety include eating a balanced and healthy diet, limiting caffeine and alcohol consumption, getting enough sleep, getting regular exercise, meditating, keeping a diary of the students' feelings, how they're processing those, and scheduling time for hobbies. Other checks prior to training include receiving payment. Sometimes the payment these days will be done online prior to the lesson, or it could be a package deal. And I always confirm that if it's a manual or an automatic lesson. I have been caught out before on that one. Ask questions. Ascertain the student's driving experience and confidence level. It also gives the student the impression that you're interested in them and their driving history and performance. So some examples would be, who have you been driving with? How's that been going? Are there any areas of driving that you feel you need to work on? What have you been driving, automatic or manual? What sort of driving experiences have you had to school, into the city, country drive, freeway, quiet back streets? Have you done any maneuvers? Which ones? How are they going? Are there any that you feel you need to work on? These are just sample questions. You don't have to ask exactly these ones. You'll have your own style and flair that you can bring into the situation. But you're going to get information from the student this way to assist you with the go forward. Also, it's very important that the trainer's involved in assisting the student to manage the pathway to a P1 license and do that with the student thoughtfully and strategically. Now, this information is based on Queensland, Australia. If the student is under 25 years of age, they will need to book and pass a practical driving test to get their P1 license. Learners cannot take a practical driving test until they are at least 17 years of age and have met the logbook requirements. Learner logbook continued. When the learner gets their learner license, they will be given a Queensland learner logbook and information on how to download the free Queensland learner logbook app so they can start recording their driving experience. Again, this is relevant for under 25 years of age. Learners under 25 need to record at least 100 hours of supervised driving in any of the following: the Queensland Learner Logbook app or the Queensland Learner Logbook, hard copy, a learner logbook app from a recognised third-party provider, an approved interstate learner logbook, or a combination of the above methods. I mention all that because that's all part of ascertaining and getting that information to assist the learners. Now, in Queensland specifically, and these are the terms that they use, but it's very similar in other states and territories, the vehicle operation skills that we are looking to develop in our learner include the use of ancillary controls, for example, the washers, the wipers, the demister, clutch control if the driver is driving a manual vehicle, stalling prevention and correction in manual drivers. It's not the end of the world if a learner driver stalls the vehicle. It's part of the training process to teach them how to manage that stall, gain control, keep the situation safe, and move forward. Accelerator, gears, steering control, so in control of where we're heading as we steer, and steering operation, what we're doing with our hands on the steering wheel as we turn a corner or straighten up or anything like that. Braking, road position, that's position within the lane, left turn position going into a corner, right turn position going into a right-hand bend. Also, there are hazard perception skills to develop in our learners. These include observation and scanning, shoulder checks, mirror checks, signalling, which is the use of indicators, hazard detection. A hazard is anything that could potentially cause danger for us in the driving environment. Judgment. In this context, judgment is about applying the give way rule at roundabouts, T-sections, crossroads, when we're doing our maneuvers, etc. Safety margins. Again, in this context, safety margins refer to following distance, space to the sides, and in heavy vehicles, space above. Progress is all about driving to the conditions, whereas speed control is about not driving over the speed limit. Signs, e.g. stop signs, give way signs, etc. Signals, for example, traffic lights, and road markings, including painted directional arrows on the road, are all relevant as well for this section of the student's learning. The maneuvers to be covered with a C-class learner include a straight reverse, a reverse park, a hill start, turnaround maneuver, also known as a three-point turn, U-turns, and gear changing for automatic vehicles. These are discussed in more detail in other tutorials. Start every lesson with the cabin drill. The trainer will either teach or test the learner to ascertain knowledge and skill level. For example, Sally, can you show me how to set up your seat, steering wheel, seat belt, mirrors, where are your indicators, and so on. Let's look at the seat adjustments for a start. The driver needs to be able to see as far ahead as possible in the traffic. This principle is called aim high. The driver needs to be able to see the gauges, the speedo, for example. The driver needs to use a heel-toe technique with their right foot on the accelerator and the brake. The driver needs to have bent arms and bent legs. The airbag should be pointing at the driver's chest, not specifically their face. The seat itself has a number of adjustments: forward and back, up and down, the tilt, and there's also the position of the headrest as well as the steering wheel. The cabin drill continued. The steering, we've mentioned the hand positions on the steering wheel. At this point, I wouldn't cover how to steer, but I would cover the 9-3 positioning and the 10-2 positioning. Our friends, the four-wheel drive trainers and defensive driver trainers, encourage us to lightly grip the wheel with the bent arms, thumbs resting on the outside, not tucked on the inside. They would tell us that in a four-wheel drive, if you hit a rut or a root or something like that when you're driving, that the steering wheel can quickly turn and has been known to break people's thumbs and so forth. The mirrors and blind spots need to be set up as well, and shoulder checks covered with the student in conjunction. Steering wheel controls. You should cover the steering wheel positioning. Yes, we've mentioned link to the airbag and hand positions. Windscreen wipers, the speeds of the windscreen wipers and the purpose. The indicators. The student is expected to indicate for 5 seconds notice before they leave the curb, for example, perform a U-turn, a left turn, lane change, and so on. Cover the purpose, when to use them, the symbols on the dash that come on, and the audible noise as well. I like to cover the fact that the indicators sometimes self switch off and click off during a maneuver, and you have to reapply them. That seems to be a challenge for some learners. Park lights, headlights, high beam, location, purpose, and operation, and the horn, the location, the operation, and the purpose. The console controls, hazard warning lights, the location, the operation, and the purpose, air conditioning controls, fan speed, cool, warm, the direction, front demister, rear demister, and the warning lights. There's lots of information there, so there might be some things, depending on the student's ability level, that I choose to leave out if it's not critically important on those early sessions. Dash instrument cluster, lights and dials include speedo and odometer, tacho or rev counter. Some modern cars don't have one. Fuel gauge and the direction with a little arrow that points to where your fuel cap is. Temperature gauge. Some vehicles simply have an indicator rather than a gauge. Warning lights for fuel, oil, engine, water, and so on. Observation. The key to good observation is scanning. So that'll be one of my central points with all the students on my first lesson. Scanning is keeping your eyes moving, checking in one area for a couple of seconds and then moving your eyes to another area. When scanning, look in the distance, look at the road surface, look to your left and right, so eyes on the move, and regularly check your mirrors and instruments. After the cabin drill, I have a look at the driver's steering, or I teach them how to steer. So the techniques that are covered are pull-push or hand over hand. Both are acceptable in Queensland. Some trainers have a preference of one over another for specific reasons. Some trainers will encourage students to use different steering techniques in different situations. And some students you'll find will use a combination of both methods. I personally try not to over teach people how to steer. I try to get them to do what comes naturally, but I will give them the option of using either technique, and I will point out to them what the pros and cons of each one are to try and get them smooth and control with their steering. I also cover the do's and the don'ts, so I give them some examples of things such as reaching into the wheel to steer it, palming the wheel, driving with one hand, resting the arm on the gear stick, resting the right arm up on the window frame as well. So they've got a good idea of the do's and don'ts. Cover also the move off and stop procedure. I want to see that they're capable of moving off and stopping. That's critical before I go out into the traffic with them. What's next? After I've got them moving off and stopping in an auto or a manual, I will focus on their ability to leave the curb, the leaving the curb technique, the return to the curb technique, simple left-hand turns, simple right-hand turns. I focus on road positioning. I focus on scanning and checking mirrors. I focus on using the controls such as the accelerator and the brake, focusing on operating in a smooth and controlled manner. Let's have a look at some case studies. So the question is, what would a driver trainer focus on in their first lesson with the learner below based on the information supplied to them? So the information about the learner here, we've got Steve, he's 16 years of age, nationality Australian, logbook hours 0. My key instructing points would be cabin drill, steering control, scanning, move off and stop. The next student we've got is Bernie. Bernie is 21 years of age, nationality Australian, logbook hours 80. Instructing focus points. Check his knowledge of the cabin drill, vehicle control. So I'd actually quiz him on those, get him to show me where they are, ask him what some of the controls do. I would test his basic skills in a safe area, move off and stop, curb departure and return. I would have a look at his steering control. I would check his observation and scanning, mirror checks and shoulder checks in a quiet traffic area. I would cover the maneuvers with him, and based on how he goes, build up traffic situations from there. The next student is Rachel. She's a female, 19 years of age, nationality Australian, logbook hours 20. Instructing focus points would be check the cabin drill with her. I would actually give her the opportunity to get herself set up at 20 hours, check her move off and stop technique, observation and scanning, mirror and shoulder checks, steering control, cornering left and right into quiet streets, lane position and maneuvers if time. My next student is Martine, female, 17 years of age, nationality Australian, logbook hours 50. Very similar. I would check the cabin drill, move off and stop technique, observation and scanning, mirrors and shoulder checks, steering control, cornering left and right in quiet streets, lane position and maneuvers. Next we've got Lee. Lee is a male, 26 years of age, nationality People's Republic of China, English second language, lessons 0. First of all, just ascertain LLN, language literacy and numeracy. So I just check to see if Lee needs an interpreter. I'd probably use a lot of hand signaling as well with Lee. I would talk slowly, use my hands pointing for directions if necessary. I do a lot of demonstration, use simple English, again, depending on, Lee might have fantastic English, but it is his second language. So again, we would have to tease these things out and see how we go. I'd cover the cabin drill, steering control, scanning, move off and stop for lesson 1. Try and stay very positive. Take my sunglasses off so Lee can see my eyes if he needs to, again, read my facial expression. Human beings are fantastic at reading body language tuned with the voice. So I sometimes will use that technique as well. Next, we've got demeanor, female, 23 years of age, nationality, Democratic Republic of the Congo, English second language. Don't know how many hours at all demeanor's done. So, again, check demeanor's ability to comprehend and understand English and also communicate verbally. Talk slowly, use hand gestures, go through the cabin drill, steering control, scanning, move off and stop, and then I just take it from there and see how we go. Next, we've got Muhammad, and Muhammad is 30 years of age, male, nationality Iraq, English second language, and Muhammad actually has a license, an Iraqi license. So my instructing focus points would be, again, just ascertain Muhammad's level of ability to understand the spoken English and also to communicate back to me in his speaking ability. But talk slowly, use hand gestures, use lots of diagrams as well. Check his cabin drill ability, move off and stop technique, observation and scanning, mirror checks and shoulder checks, confirm all those. Have a look at his steering control, check his cornering left and right on quiet streets, check his lane positioning, go through all the maneuvers, and ensure that Muhammad complies with the Australian road rules that may be different from Iraqi road rules. he would need to go through, there's a different assignment we cover on this with the English translation of his license from the approved bodies. I think that's assignment number 9. So I won't cover that in this tutorial specifically. And we've got Basha, and Basha is female, 18 years of age, nationality India, logbook hours 70, languages Hindi and English. So again, just check Basha's English level, ability to speak and to also understand English as well. So get our communication working together. I would use hand signals. I use hand gestures for all students. Again, it's that non-verbal communication. Check Basha's knowledge of the cabin drill, the vehicle controls. Test Basha's basic skills in a safe area, move off and stop, curb departure and return. Have a look at Basha's steering control. Check observation, scanning, mirror checks and shoulder checks in quiet traffic areas. Go through the maneuvers, and based on how Basha goes with that, build up traffic situations from there.